Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? So glad to be here with you. I don't know where you are, but here it is overcast and rainy. So we're going to try and keep things going, get that energy going up on this Monday morning. Welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat. For those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Patricia Hayes. I am an executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And what that means is I love helping people, especially women, who are looking to make transitions in their careers and their businesses and need that boost of confidence, self empowerment, and advocacy in order to make it to the next level. And too often, we don't utilize our professional relationships in a strategic enough manner to help us in that transition. And that is what I specialize in. So, always here. Hope you will reach out if you have any questions. Check out any of my socials and the content on wherever you are watching right now, and you'll be able to get a good idea of who I am and what I do. So, this month, we have not been following our traditional themes. Instead, we've been kind of going off the cuff with topics that have come up as I speak with colleagues, as I speak with clients and potential clients all throughout the month. And so the topic for today that has come up and seems to have been resurfacing in a variety of ways is that of valuing your network's input. And this is one of those things that's super important. I know we always say everything's important, but it is in the context of when you are trying to make a move, a transition, make some changes, and you go out to ask for help, to ask for people's input, it's super important that you actually give some weight to what is given to you, or at least to hear it out with, maybe with a grain of salt, but at least to hear it out, right? And because here's the thing, most of the time, especially if you're in the middle of a transition that's particularly difficult, it is really hard to reach out to people, even the people that you know or know best, right? Because you may be, feeling threatened. You may be feeling like, I don't know if I can trust anybody right now. I mean, like, I understand that feeling. Okay. I have been there in the midst of a major career transition and really feeling troubled by who I thought I could reach out to or not. Okay. And there are strategies for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the important thing is to reach out. You really do want to make sure that you get outside your head. And that's really what's going on when you reach out to someone. You are getting outside of your own head and either validating what you've been thinking or finding out that what you've been thinking is a bunch of hogwash and that you need to step it up, step into your power, and move along. Most of the time, it's the latter. Okay. Most of the time, we have built up some really strong negative stories in our head that affect our ability to make a sound decision moving forward. So it's really good to be able to talk to others when you're in the midst of making a transition, trying to decide what to do next, and to get some input that's independent, that's hopefully a little bit more objective, and that can be of value to you. And a lot of times, whether that's from a mentor, whether it's from an accountability partner, whether it's from a really close friend that you trust to be able to share professional content with, because here's a difference: sharing things on a personal nature with a really good friend and sharing things of a professional nature with a very good friend are not always the same, right? Because depending on where you are as far as leveling in your position and your job, your industry, your friend can be a wonderful friend and not be able to provide you sound input on your professional decision making, right? So there's a little compartmentalization that goes on, and it's okay. I want you to let you know to it's okay to to compartmentalize in order to validate that action, because everybody can't give you good input on certain things, right? And so it's really important to remember that in times like this. Now, That said, acknowledging the importance of seeking outside counsel in terms of someone who can be more objective with what you're talking about, who can listen to you and provide some input. There are three things that really come up, and they seem really basic, but there's so much depth to it, right? Is that when you're doing that, and the way to make sure you value your network's input when you go out to them to ask for guidance, direction, is you have to listen, you have to be willing to learn, and then ultimately, you must act. You must make a decision. All right. Now, let's talk about this listening part because a lot of times we think we're listening when all we're doing is hearing, right? The words are coming in one ear, going out the other because we're too busy processing in another way. Here's the thing, in order to really hear, you must listen to what is being shared. That means you must sit down, you must have cleared your mind and your brain of all that extra activity that's going on, because I know there's a lot there, and really try to stay focused in the moment, be present so that you want to probably take notes, you want to be able to pose questions. And in order to do that, that requires listening. Like, it's active listening is what I'm getting to, right? You want to make sure that you're engaged in your listening actively, not passively. And because there's a totally different thing. When you're being passive and you're listening, you are going to miss out on some golden nuggets more than likely. And so this is, again, y'all know how I feel about reflection time and journaling, but this is absolutely one of those times for that. To sit, to make sure that, when you're asking that input or you're preparing for it, that you have given some thought to what it is you want to ask, how you want to dig a little deeper should you need to, and so that you can prepare yourself to do something with the information and the input that you receive. Okay. So that means really getting a handle, if you can, on what your situation is, what's your problem, what's your concern. Literally write out, what is my problem? What is the concern that I have? And write an answer to that, because you're going to get that question, right? So you want to be prepared for that. And then when it comes to potential solutions, you may have some already identified, but do not close yourself off to getting additional input from those other people or folks that you're going to be checking out with. So you may share the solutions that you are offering up or that you've come up with, or you may say, hey, I have some ideas of how to move forward with this, but I really want to be objective and I'd really like to hear your input first, right? And that way, you're truly getting some objectivity, and that it's not being colored by something that you've already said. Okay. Here's the thing, you do not have to agree to anything that you hear. All right. The point is to ask and to listen. All right. And when you do that, that is absolutely how you're valuing what your network, what the people that you're consulting with are providing to you. And it's so much more important because you ask. What's the point in asking for help if you're not going to listen to what someone has to offer you? Okay. I have had this come up a time or two. Oh my gosh, I will not share any details. However, what I will say is it's extremely frustrating for someone to come to you, I will say myself, who have come to me asking for some input on a professional matter. And as I'm getting the words out, or as I'm trying to share from my perspective, right? Because most of the time, people are not giving you the entire story. All right. So, as when you are sharing and asking for input, please try to be as honest as possible. Or if there's some matter that's particularly sensitive and you're still not comfortable sharing it, at least acknowledge your with your person. He's like, you look, I'm telling you just, 90, 95%. There's a little bit I'm not because it's really sensitive. So I'm going to recognize and acknowledge that for you. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm sitting there, I'm getting asked to provide some input, some direction on a professional matter. And as I'm tossing out my insights based on the information that's been provided to me, the person is like knocking it down, everything I say. So then I just get to a point where I'm just being quiet. And they're like, well, why aren't you talking? I'm like, well, it sounds like you've already made up your mind. So there's really no need for me to go further. Okay. Here's the thing, do not do that to your network. Do not do that to the people that you reach out to consult to. Be respectful of their time, be respectful of their ideas, of their potential solutions, of what they have to offer. Even if you don't agree with it, or in your heart of hearts, you know you're not really ready to hear what they have to say, but you asked. All right. So if you truly are not ready to hear what someone else has to say, then you might need to do a little more reflection work, a little more time, because what you do not want to do is to waste a golden opportunity. So I highly suggest when you're doing it, you make sure that you are actively listening, maybe even taking notes so that you won't forget. Okay. And then so that you can reflect on it later on. Because what you don't want to do is just say, oh, great, this is great, and then do it. Most of the time, if particularly if it's a pretty in-depth transition or issue that's going on, you're probably going to talk to at least 2 or 3 people. I recommend that, right? Get 2 or 3 different, viewpoints on the situation, which is why it's important, excuse me, in order to take the notes, make note of who said it in the context, and so that you can go back and look them over, because you will learn something when you do that. So this is why it's really important to engage in active listening, to ask in-depth questions, to ask follow-up questions while you have it, remembering you don't have to agree with it, but you do need to respect it. Okay, don't have to agree, but you do need to respect. That's going to end up on a quote somewhere. Okay. All right. So that's point number one. Number two is learn. Be willing to learn. And this is so, I love this point, because a lot of times when we're engaged with folks, and we've tossed out some things and they're feeding it back to us, we aren't normally prepared to learn in that process. We're normally prepared to try and get an answer that we think we can move forward with. But here's the thing, when you are open and willing to learning something about yourself and about the situation, it really takes things to another level and will probably give you pause. So I'm working with some people now who are making some transitions, and it's so hilarious because we'll have these conversations, think they're about to go someplace, they're about to go one direction, right? Direction one. When all of a sudden, after they've really sat down, they've heard what I've had to say, providing, getting some input on it, they've gone out and as a result done some more research, and then come to a conclusion that's completely different than they were thinking in direction one. They're like now in direction two. It's like, yeah, I think I've changed my position on this. And that doesn't make them wishy-washy. It's your decision. You get to do that, right? But instead, it means they were willing to take what they heard, to learn some more about it so that they can make a more informed decision. That's ultimately where you're getting to, right? You want to make the best decision possible for you. Notice I did not say the right decision, because most of the time there's not one right decision. However, there can be a best decision for you at that moment in time. Because the truth of the matter is, if the facts change in a week, you could come up with a different decision. It's absolutely true, but you don't want to get stuck in that. You have to go with what you've listened to, the input you've received, what you've learned as a result. Okay? And that learning, like I said, is not just about some external factor. It can also be about yourself. When you learn that the things that you thought you wanted, the conversations you're having reveal the fact of, wow, I don't want that anymore. That's not really the direction that I want to go in. I will never forget that years and years ago with an old colleague of mine, we would go and get together, have coffee every once in a while, and sometimes the times would lapse, and so we were chatting, and we had gotten to a point where he was rattling off some opportunities and things like that. And I had to tell him, I was listening to it and it was very interesting, but I realized I was going to be getting the wrong information from him because he didn't know where I was positioned, where my mind was at that time. So I had to tell him, like, hey, things have changed. I actually said to him, let me introduce you to Patricia 2.0. And we both laughed about it, and then he sat and he listened to the direction that I was now interested in, and then he could provide me the right input for that moment, a different input than he was giving me, because now it's more targeted and it's on point to where I am. So did you see what had just happened there? It is a two-way street, right? You have to be willing to learn from the folks that you're seeking guidance from, but you also have to provide them with the information so that they can be up to date and advise you in a more accurate manner, right? So that what they're advising you, it doesn't turn out to be bad information or bad advice later, simply because you didn't provide them with the update they needed to make an informed to have an informed conversation. Right. So just remember, the learning can go both ways, and specifically on your part, making sure you're willing to learn from the information that you receive, from the input that you receive, and it may direct you to go do some more research, to ask more questions, and that is a part of the process. Okay. And it's so important and it's so great because the folks that you engage in will appreciate it. And guess what? They'll be more likely to help you down the road again because they see that you took their input seriously, right? You're showing that you really do value what they have to say. Doesn't mean, like I said, doesn't mean you agree with it, doesn't mean you act specifically on it. But when you put it all together, you can say, hey, here's where I got to, here's the decision that I chose to make, which gets us to point number 3, which is you must act, right? You can gather all the information you want, but if you don't take any action on it, it makes you look like you wasted people's time. Now, that's not sometimes not moving forward is the action, right? But I'm talking about doing that in a deliberate fashion, not in a passive one where it's just like, well, you just gathered all that and then you just sat on it, right? That's different than you gathered all the information, you realize, you know what, it's not time to make that step yet. And so you actively decided, I'm not going to do this yet. I'm going to do this instead, or whatever the case may be. All right. Make a decision. Because here's the thing, your network, the people in your network are watching you. They know when you have taken an action on something that you've talked about or not. And if you really want to be respectful of them, you let them know. If you were charged up enough to call out and ask for help with something, in a way, you deserve a follow up to them. Again, it's not saying that you're getting deep down into, oh, I did this and this and this, but it's a rather of saying, hey, I just want to follow up and let you know, thanks for the advice, thanks for the guidance. I made some decisions, and what you offered to me impacted my ability to do so. It can be as simple as that. Okay. But if you don't follow up and then they come to you, or you're seeing them later and they're looking and it's looking like you're in the same position that you were when you sought them out and spent an hour on the phone or whatever it was, then they're going to be like, what is really going on? And they're probably going to be a little more cautious the next time they get on the phone with you, because they're going to be like, is this a waste of my time? Okay. And that's the thing. You want to show that you value the input that you receive, that you respect them. And doing so includes making a decision or actively not doing so, but keeping them informed of your progress. Okay. It's so awesome to get the call, to get the message, even if it just says, "Hey, I'm sorry, I haven't followed up in a minute. It's been a little crazy. Just want to let you know that I did decide to do X or I decided not to. And I will love to follow up when you get a chance." Okay. Follow up, follow through. Y'all know how I feel about that. The follow up and the follow through are crucial. Okay. So there we are. When you're valuing your network's input, number one, the the baseline foundation is you have to be willing to ask for the help, right? And then when you ask for the help, you have to be willing to listen, you have to be willing to learn, and then you have to be willing to take action and make a decision moving forward on what you've learned in the process. Okay? And being respectful of your network all along the way and engaging them, because most of the time people really do just want to help. Okay, and they want to know that that they were able to help, or that the decision or the information that they provided to you helped in some way, or to say, "Hey, you know what, this didn't quite work out. I want to FYI let you know that," especially if it involved a referral of some sort, right? People absolutely want to know, "Hey, this didn't work out. I just want to let you know why." All right, so there we are. Hope those are some good little tips that you can think about, that you could chew on when you're engaging your network to get their input and making sure that you're showing value to it. Because when you show value, show that you value them, you're actually helping yourself. Because all of those things show that you're moving forward in your decision making process and taking the steps that you need to in order to achieve the success that you seek to do in your career and in your business. Okay. All right. There we are. That's what we have for you today. So glad to have had this opportunity to share with you. I look forward to following up. If you haven't had a chance to yet, make sure you register for the networking masterclass that is scheduled for tomorrow. Even if you cannot attend, if you register, you will get access to the recording. So, and then you can watch it on your own time in the next week or so. I think that's about the time frame that I normally offer up. Okay. So it's the building profitable professional relationships that last. It's the networking masterclass that's come back. I'm super excited to be doing it again. I invite you to register for it. It is free, and look forward to having you engage, whether it's live or whether it's on the replay. So go to the link in my bio and you will be able to find the information that you need in order to register. I hope you all have a fantastic start to your week and look forward to following up with you in the comments and the messages. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye bye.